The targeting reticle settled on the third irrigation hub, and I squeezed the trigger before my brain could raise objections. That's the trick to this work. You let your hands move faster than your conscience. The kinetic round punched through the hub's ceramic housing. Water jetted from the rupture, a pressurized arc that turned to mist in the Moroccan Depression's afternoon heat. The structure groaned, a low, bending sound, and collapsed into itself. Through my cockpit viewport, I watched it fold like a card tower, clean, efficient, 30 seconds from target lock to rubble. My name is Liam Bell. I'm 37 years old, and I break things for money. The Locust, that's my mech, a 9-meter bipedal unit with hydraulic joints and an arm-mounted cannon with programmable muzzle energy and selectable munitions, stepped over the rubble field. My HUD, the translucent display projected across my viewport, marked the target as neutralized and populated the next waypoint. 6 more hubs to go. The job was straightforward. Deny water infrastructure to Verdant Agricultural's operations in Grid Section 22. Their competitor, Sahara Greens, was paying me 4,200 cred units to do it. Cred units are the universal currency now that national governments don't issue money anymore. Just corporate scrip with different logos. Corps still issue scrip, but it's pegged to cred units as the intercorporate clearing unit. I'd been in the Depression for 4 hours. The terrain was a dried seabed, cracked mud stretching to the horizon in tessellated patterns. Decades ago, this was the Mediterranean. Now it's a dust bowl where agricultural corps fight over the last aquifers. The Locust's footpads sank half a meter with each step, hydraulics compensating automatically. The 4th hub appeared on my display. I pivoted the Locust's torso and raised the cannon. That's when I saw the windows. Small squares, maybe a meter across, punched into the hub's eastern wall. Cloth hung in a few of them. Sheets, maybe, pinned up as makeshift curtains. My targeting system highlighted the structure in red. Standard irrigation hub, ceramic construction, water storage capacity, 40,000 litres. Nothing about windows, nothing about cloth. I zoomed the viewport's optics. The windows resolved into sharper detail. Behind one of the sheets, a shadow moved. My hands stopped. The Locust froze mid-stride, 1 foot suspended above the ground. The hydraulics hissed as they held position, keeping the mech balanced on one leg while I tried to understand what I was looking at. A dormitory. Workers lived there. Probably Verdant's contract labourers, people who'd signed 5-year indentures for a chance to earn enough to buy their way out of the coastal refugee zones. The building was dual purpose. Water storage below, housing above. Efficient, cost-effective. I'd just been hired to demolish their home. My HUD displayed a countdown in the corner, 17 minutes remaining on the contract window. If I didn't complete all 10 targets in that time, the payout dropped by 15%. Valkyrie, the app that connects freelance pilots like me to people who need things destroyed, had made that very clear in the contract terms. I stared at the windows. The Locust's cockpit is small, barely enough room to shift your shoulders. I've been piloting this particular unit for 6 years. Bought it used from a military surplus auction after the last National Army disbanded. The seat's padding has compressed to the shape of my spine. The manual control sticks are worn smooth where my palms grip them. I know every rattle, every grinding joint that needs oil. Right now, one of the overhead ventilation fans was clicking with each rotation, a sound I'd been meaning to fix for 3 months. I could leave. Pick a different target. Come back to this one, never. The penalty for incomplete contracts is 40% of the total payout. That would drop my take from 4,200 to 2,500. Valkyrie would also flag my account. Too many incomplete jobs and the algorithm stops offering you work. I'd seen it happen to other pilots. They'd post in the forums about being locked out, blacklisted, forced to find other employment in a world where there wasn't much employment left to find. 2,500 wouldn't cover Rose's next treatment. My daughter, 9 years old, diagnosed with osteogenesis imperfecta type 4 when she was 6, a genetic condition where her bones don't regenerate properly. They fracture under normal stress, walking too fast, carrying her backpack. Last year, her right femur snapped when she stood up from a chair. Cellular regeneration therapy can fix it. They take stem cells, reprogram them, inject them into the bone tissue. 3 treatments and she'd be normal. We'd finished 2. The third was supposed to happen next month. The clinic wouldn't schedule it until we cleared the outstanding balance. 47,000 cred units from the first 2 rounds. I looked at the windows again. Then I looked at the countdown. 16 minutes. I fired. The round hit the building's lower support column. The structure didn't collapse cleanly like the others. It sagged, twisted, and then the second floor, the part with the windows, sheared away from the foundation and slid sideways. The walls buckled. I heard the crash through the Locust's external audio pickups, a sound like bones breaking. Something small and dark fell from one of the windows. It hit the ground and didn't move. I completed the other 6 targets in 12 minutes. Didn't look at them closely. Didn't check for windows. Just walked the Locust from waypoint to waypoint. Fired. Moved on. When the job timer hit 0, the Valkyrie app pinged. Contract complete. Payment processing. Rate your experience. I gave it 4 stars. Would have been 5, but the job description should have mentioned the dormitories. The flight back to Detroit took 6 hours. I spent most of it staring at the cargo transport's ceiling, watching condensation beads trace paths across the metal. The Locust was mag-locked in the bay behind me, powered down, waiting for the next job. My hands had stopped shaking somewhere over the Atlantic. I didn't think about what I'd seen. That's another trick to this work. You don't carry it with you. You file it away in whatever part of your brain handles things you'd rather not remember, and you focus on the practical. The money would clear in 24 hours. I'd transfer it to the medical account. We'd be 1 step closer to Rose's 3rd treatment. The transport touched down at Detroit Metroplex's cargo hub just after midnight. I took the rail transit to the Arcology, a single massive structure that housed 600,000 people in vertical tiers. The Detroit Arcology wasn't the biggest in North America, but it was old, built by Cascade Logistics back when they were still pretending residential housing was about anything other than extracting rent from people who had nowhere else to go. The Arcology is divided into tiers based on income. Tier 1 is the top 20 floors, executive housing, climate control, actual windows. Tier 3 is where I live, floors 80 through 120. Working class families, functional plumbing most days, walls thin enough to hear your neighbours' arguments. Tier 5 is the bottom, debtors who defaulted on contracts and now worked building maintenance to pay down their balances. Cascade didn't cut off their water entirely. That would violate housing regulations, but they throttled it to 30 minutes per day. I stepped off the transit at floor 94 and walked through the central corridor. It was quiet. Most people were asleep. A few kids sat in a corner near the communal charging stations, sharing a screen and watching something I couldn't hear. One of them glanced at me and then went back to the video. Our apartment was at the end of the corridor, Unit 17J940-847. I keyed the lock and stepped inside. Samir was awake. She sat at the kitchen table, a fold-down surface attached to the wall, with her tablet in front of her. She looked up when I entered. Her face was drawn, the skin under her eyes darker than it had been when I left. "Liam," she said. Not a greeting, just acknowledgement. "Hey." I set my bag down. "How's Rose?" "She's asleep." Samir turned the tablet toward me. The screen displayed a message from the clinic. Outstanding balance, 47,000 cred units. Treatment schedule suspended pending payment clearance. I nodded. "I finished a job tonight. It'll clear tomorrow." "How much?" 4,200. Samir looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked back at the tablet. "That's not enough." "I know. We need another 43,000. The clinic sent a reminder yesterday. If we don't make progress on the balance within 30 days, they'll transfer the debt to collections." She tapped the screen, pulling up another document. Collections means Cascade takes over. They'll start penalty deductions from our housing account, water throttling, possible eviction if we can't pay. I'd read the terms when we'd signed up for the medical payment plan. Healthcare in the arcology wasn't free. It was provided by Cascade through a credit system. You got treatment, you paid later. If you didn't pay, the debt became part of your housing contract, which Cascade owned. Everything was connected. Everything had penalties. "I'll take more jobs," I said. "You've been taking jobs for 6 months straight." Samir's voice was flat, exhausted. "You're gone 4 days out of 7. Rose asks when you'll be home. I don't know what to tell her. Tell her I'm working so she can walk." Samir closed her eyes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said quietly, "She cried again today. Her leg. She was trying to keep up with the other kids in the common area, and she fell. She tried not to show it, but I could see. I thought about the building in the Moroccan Depression, the shadow in the window, the thing that fell. I'll find something," I said. "A bigger contract, enough to clear it." Samir opened her eyes and looked at me. "And if you don't come back from one of these jobs, then you get the death benefit. 50,000 cred units, that'd cover it." Her expression didn't change. "Don't. I'm just saying, don't." I nodded. We'd had this conversation before. Different words, same shape. Samir stood and picked up the tablet. "I'm going to bed. There's leftovers in the cooler if you're hungry." "Thanks." She walked past me toward the bedroom, then stopped. "Liam." "Yeah?" "I'm not angry at you. I want you to know that. I'm angry at everything else. But not you." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded again. She disappeared into the bedroom and closed the door softly. I stood in the kitchen for a few minutes, staring at nothing. Then I opened the cooler and looked at the leftovers, rice and something brown, maybe beans. I wasn't hungry. I closed the cooler and walked to Rose's room instead. The door was cracked open. I pushed it wider and stepped inside. Rose was asleep in her bed, the blanket pulled up to her chin. Her face was peaceful. She looked small. I watched her breathe for a while. In, out, steady, normal. I thought about the 47,000 cred units, about the clinic, about the collections algorithm that would start throttling our water if we missed the deadline. Then I thought about the building again, the windows, the shadow. I left Rose's room and went to the couch in the living area. I lay down without taking off my jacket and pulled out my phone. The Valkyrie app's icon sat on the home screen, a stylized wing surrounding a red crosshair. I opened it. The dashboard loaded. My rating 4.7 stars, completed contracts 218, current account balance 6,300 cred units, most of it already allocated to rent and food. At the top of the screen was a banner, "New contracts available in your area." I scrolled through the listings. Most were low-paying: security patrols, equipment transport, perimeter guard duty, 1,200 cred units for 8 hours, 1,500 for overnight. Nothing that would make a dent in the debt. I kept scrolling. Then I saw it. Urban Pacification Tier 3 Authorized Immediate Deployment. Payout, 68,000 cred units. I stared at the number, 68,000. That was enough to clear the medical debt and cover 6 months of rent. Maybe more if I was careful. I tapped the listing to expand the details. Contract type, Urban Pacification, Deployment Zone, withheld until acceptance. Duration, 2 to 4 hours. Equipment required. Bipedal combat unit, 8 to 12 meter class. Rules of engagement, minimal collateral damage to infrastructure. Civilian presence expected but non-hostile. Objective, suppress non-compliant entities in designated residential zone. Payout, 68,000 cred units. Contractor rating required, 4.5 stars or higher. The description was vague, but that wasn't unusual. A lot of corporate contracts kept details opaque until after you accepted. Legal liability reasons, standard practice, non-compliant entities. That could mean protesters, squatters, people occupying a building Cascade wanted to repurpose. The jobs were usually simple: show up in a mech, look intimidating, wait for people to leave. Sometimes you had to fire a warning shot. I'd done a few before. Nobody got hurt. Civilian presence expected, but non-hostile. That meant it wasn't a combat zone. No armed resistance, just people who needed persuading. I looked at the payout again. 68,000. I thought about Rose crying because her leg hurt. About Samir's face when she'd shown me the debt notice. About the countdown timer in 30 days before collections took over and we started losing everything. My thumb hovered over the accept contract button. There was a clause at the bottom of the listing. Small text. Deployment zone details will be provided upon acceptance. By accepting this contract, you agree to complete all objectives as specified, or incur breach penalties equivalent to 140% of payout value. Breach penalties. If I accepted and then backed out, I'd owe Cascade 95,000 cred units. That was standard too. It kept contractors from cherry-picking easy parts of jobs and abandoning the rest. I read the listing one more time. Then I pressed accept. The screen changed. A loading bar appeared. Processing contract assignment, stand by. It took 15 seconds. Then the deployment details populated. Deployment zone, Detroit Arcology, Tier 3, Section 17J, Central Plaza, report time, 0600 hours. Transport, automated cargo drop, coordinates provided upon departure. I read the address 3 times. Section 17J. That was my section, my floor, my building. The Central Plaza. That was the common area 50 meters from my apartment door. The place where kids played, where people gathered when the weather was good. I stared at the screen. A notification appeared. Contract accepted. Report to Valkyrie Depot by 5:30 for equipment prep. Failure to report will incur breach penalties. My hands were numb. I tried to open the contract details again, tried to find a cancellation option, but the app had already locked the acceptance. There was a customer service button. I tapped it. A chatbot appeared. Hello, how can I help you today? I typed, I need to cancel a contract. Deployment zone is incorrect. The bot responded instantly. We're sorry to hear you're experiencing issues. Per Valkyrie terms of service, contracts cannot be cancelled after acceptance. Please review our FAQ for more information. I typed, this is my residential building. I can't deploy here. The bot. Valkyrie contracts are legally binding. Breach of contract will result in financial penalties and account suspension. If you have questions about deployment zones, please contact the client directly. Have a great day. I tried 3 more times, typing different variations of the same message. The bot gave me the same responses, sometimes with different emoji. I closed the app. I sat on the couch in the dark, staring at my phone's black screen. Outside, through the thin walls, I could hear someone's television. A low murmur of voices. Normal sounds. People sleeping, living, existing in the same building, where I'd just agreed to deploy a combat mech in 6 hours. I thought about going back to the bedroom, waking Samir, telling her what I'd done. But I didn't know what I'd done. Not really. The contract said suppress non-compliant entities. It didn't say who they were or what they'd done. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the address was wrong. Maybe it would make sense when I got there. I lay down on the couch and closed my eyes. I didn't sleep. At 5 in the morning, I got up, washed my face, and headed for the depot. The transit was empty except for a maintenance worker slumped in a corner seat. I sat on the opposite side and watched the floors tick by on the display. When I reached the depot, the Locust was already prepped, mag-locked in a cargo drone's harness. A technician handed me a helmet and a tablet with the mission brief. I skimmed it. Same information as before. Nothing new. Good to go? The technician asked. I nodded. You okay? You look... I'm fine. He shrugged. Suit yourself. Drone drops you at 0600. You've got the coordinates. Simple crowd control. Should be easy. I climbed into the Locust cockpit and strapped in. The systems booted. My HUD came online, displaying diagnostics. Everything green. The cargo drone lifted off at 0545. I watched the depot shrink below me through the viewport. The city spread out in the pre-dawn light, the arcology rising like a monument in the distance. My phone buzzed. A message from Samir. "You left early. Be safe." I typed back. "Always." The drone began its descent towards Section 17J. I could see the central plaza now, a small square of open space between the buildings. There were people there. A lot of people. My HUD activated the mission timer. Deployment in 90 seconds. I closed my eyes and thought about Rose, about her smile, about the way she'd hugged me last week and said thank you for trying. The cargo drone's harness released. The Locust dropped the final 3 meters and landed with a hydraulic thump. My viewport's optics came online. I was standing in the plaza, and I was looking at my neighbors. There were 200 people in the plaza, maybe more. They filled the space between the residential blocks, packed shoulder to shoulder, holding signs made from flattened cardboard boxes and printer paper. Someone had strung a banner across the north entrance. "Water is a right, not a profit margin." My HUD tagged them immediately. Red outlines appeared around individual figures, clustering them into threat groups. The targeting system labeled each cluster with a number: NC01, NC02, NC03. Non-compliant entities, the computer's name for human beings who weren't doing what they were told. I recognized the man at the front. Idris Edwards. He lived 2 floors up from me, Unit 17J 960902. I'd helped him carry furniture when he moved in 4 years ago. He was holding a megaphone, standing on an overturned crate, addressing the crowd. His voice came through the Locust's external audio pickups, tinny and distant. Telling us, we don't have a choice, but we do. We have the choice to stand here and say no. We have the choice to... The crowd was singing. I couldn't make out the words at first, but then I recognized the melody. Solidarity Forever. An old Union song, older than anyone in the plaza. My grandfather used to hum it when I was a kid, back when unions still existed. I saw Helen Bailey near the middle of the crowd. She ran the communal childcare pod on floor 92. Watched Rose twice a week when Samir had late shifts at the recycling plant. She was holding a sign. "Our children need water." A teenager I didn't know was sitting on someone's shoulders, waving a tablet displaying a petition. An older man with a cane stood at the edge of the group, just watching. A woman in medical scrubs, I thought her name was Julia or Julie, she worked at the arcology's clinic, was passing out water bottles from a cart. These were my neighbors. My HUD populated a mission timer in the corner of my vision. 1800 hours in red numbers. 18 minutes to disperse the crowd, or forfeit the payout and trigger breach penalties. I sat in the cockpit, hands frozen on the control sticks. The Locust's hydraulics hissed softly, maintaining balance. Through the viewport, I could see apartment windows. Hundreds of them. People were watching. Some had cameras. I needed to understand what was happening. I pulled up the contract details on my secondary screen, scanning for context. There was a briefing document attached, 3 paragraphs of corporate language. Cascade Logistics has implemented a new dynamic water pricing system in Tier 3 residential zones to optimize resource distribution and reduce waste. A subset of residents in Section 17J have organized an unauthorized gathering in violation of Arcology Housing Codes, Section 19.8.4. Contractor will deploy to designated zone and ensure dispersal of unauthorized assembly. Use of force authorized as necessary to restore normal operations. That was all it said. No mention of what the dynamic pricing system actually was. No context for why people were protesting. I'd lived in this building for 9 years. I knew exactly what it was. 3 days ago, Cascade had announced a new billing structure for water. Instead of a flat monthly rate, We'd be charged per-minute usage with algorithmic surge pricing during peak hours. Morning showers would cost triple. Washing clothes during the day would cost quadruple. The average Tier 3 family's water bill would increase by 60%, according to the leaked internal memos that had been circulating on the resident message boards. For people already spending 70% of their income on rent and food, that 60% meant choosing between drinking water and hygiene. It meant letting your kids go dirty. It meant not washing sheets when someone got sick. People had filed complaints through official channels. They'd submitted forms, requested hearings, organized petitions. I'd seen the messages on the boards. The response from Cascade's residential management division had been automated. Your feedback has been recorded. Thank you for being a valued resident. So they'd started a sit-in. Peaceful, no violence, no property damage, just people refusing to move until Cascade agreed to negotiate. And Cascade had hired me to make them move. The timer ticked down. 17 minutes and 22 seconds. I activated the Locust's external speakers and keyed the microphone. My voice would be amplified, broadcast across the plaza. I kept it neutral, professional. This is a contracted security unit. You are in violation of our ecology housing codes. Disperse immediately or face enforcement action. The crowd didn't move. Idris raised the megaphone. We're not leaving. We have a right to assemble peacefully. We're not threatening anyone. We're just asking for basic human dignity. My HUD flagged him as the primary organizer, outlining his figure in bright red. A priority target. I tried the Valkyrie app's dispute function, the one that was supposed to let you contest deployment errors. I tapped through 3 screens of menus until I found a customer service option. The chatbot appeared. Hi, I'm here to help. What can I do for you today? I typed, deployment error. This is my residential building. Need immediate reassignment. The response was instant. I understand you have concerns about your deployment. Unfortunately, contracts cannot be modified after acceptance per our terms of service. Is there anything else I can help with? I typed, these are civilians, non-hostile. Contract description is inaccurate. Valkyrie takes contractor safety seriously. All contracts undergo thorough review. If you feel unsafe, you may terminate employment, but breach penalties will apply. Have you considered our premium insurance package? I closed the app. The timer read 16 minutes and 44 seconds. Something moved in my peripheral vision. Small shapes descending from above. Security drones, quadcopters about the size of a briefcase, used by Cascade for crowd control in the lower tiers. There were 6 of them, dropping into formation around the plaza's perimeter. I hadn't called them. Cascade must have deployed them independently, probably triggered automatically when the Locust's positioning system confirmed I was on site. The drones carried riot munitions, non-lethal technically, tear gas canisters, sonic disruptors, rubber bullets. They were controlled by another algorithm coordinating with my Mechs mission parameters to optimize dispersal efficiency. The crowd saw them, people pointed, someone shouted a warning. The drones fired. Tear gas canisters arced through the air, trailing white vapor. They hit the ground and began spewing clouds of irritant. The crowd reacted immediately, people covering their faces, coughing, stumbling backward. Parents grabbed children. Someone kicked one of the canisters, trying to get it away from the group, but it just rolled and kept venting. The singing stopped. People were shouting now, yelling at each other to move, to get back, to stay together. The formation broke apart as sections of the crowd scattered toward the exits, but most of them didn't run. They retreated toward the residential entrance, the atrium that connected the plaza to the building's interior corridors. It was a large space, maybe 40 meters across, with a high ceiling and a single set of doors leading deeper into the arcology. It was also a dead end. The doors could be sealed remotely, standard security feature. The crowd packed into the atrium, compressed by the gas behind them. I counted at least 100 people in there now, pressed together, nowhere else to go. More were still trying to squeeze through the entrance. My HUD updated. The objective text changed. Primary objective, clear atrium. Disperse crowd to residential corridors. Rules of engagement. Non-lethal force authorized. Lethal force authorized if non-lethal fails within 12 minutes. If I didn't clear the atrium in 12 minutes, the contract authorized me to start shooting people. I gripped the control sticks harder. The Locust's right arm trembled slightly, the cannon barrel dipping and rising with the minute movements of my wrist. I keyed the external speakers again. This time I didn't disguise my voice. "This is Liam Bell." My name echoed across the plaza. "I live here, floor 94. This is my home too. Please leave. They're going to make me hurt you if you don't leave." The crowd in the atrium went quiet. I saw faces turning toward the Locust, trying to see through the viewport, trying to see me. Someone shouted something I couldn't make out. Then another voice, louder. "Traitor!" Idris raised his megaphone. He was still in the plaza, hadn't retreated to the atrium. "Liam, if that's really you, then you know why we're here. You know what they're trying to do. We're not asking for much. We just want to survive." My HUD tagged him again. "Priority target. Threat level elevated." "I don't have a choice," I said. "If I don't complete this contract, I lose everything." "We're already losing everything," a woman's voice coming from the atrium. "They're taking our water. Our kids are going to school thirsty." The timer ticked down. 11 minutes and 2 seconds. I could fire a warning shot. Put a round into the plaza's concrete away from the crowd. Show them I was serious. Maybe that would be enough. Maybe they'd run. I pivoted the Locust to face an empty section of the plaza, well away from the atrium entrance. Raised the cannon. The targeting reticle settled on bare ground, a spot near the east wall where no one was standing. I squeezed the trigger. The reduced power baton round left the barrel at low velocity. No sonic boom, just a dull thud meant to warn, not maim. I'd fired thousands of rounds from this cannon. I knew exactly what it would do when it hit concrete. Punch through, crater the surface, send dust and fragments spraying outward in a roughly circular pattern. The round hit the plaza floor and ricocheted. The sound was not the heavy thump of concrete shattering, but a sharp, ringing crack. The round bounced, deflected at a 40-degree angle, and kept going. It hit someone. I saw it happen on my secondary camera, the rear-facing view. A man 20 meters from the impact point, standing at the edge of the atrium entrance. The round struck him in the lower back. He dropped immediately, folding at the waist like someone had cut his strings. The crowd screamed. People rushed toward him, forming a circle. Someone knelt beside him, hands hovering over his body, not touching, like they were afraid to make it worse. A woman was shouting for a medic. The crowd parted and Julia, the woman in scrubs, pushed through, dropping to her knees next to the man. My HUD zoomed the viewport automatically, identifying the casualty. Text populated next to his collapsed form. Casualty registered, Terence Foster, age 34, resident ID 17J930-731. I knew him. Not well. We'd spoken twice, maybe 3 times. Once in the transit elevator when he'd helped an older woman carry her groceries. Once at a resident meeting about hallway repairs. He'd seemed kind. He had kids. I'd seen them in the common area, 3 boys under 10. The Valkyrie app chimed. A notification appeared on my HUD. Collateral damage within acceptable parameters. Mission timer extended by 4 minutes as performance incentive. Current payout, 68,000 cred units. Performance incentive. They were rewarding me. My stomach convulsed and I bent forward, vomiting onto the cockpit floor. The acidic burn filled my throat. I heaved again, nothing coming up this time, just dry spasms that made my ribs ache. The crowd wasn't running. They were dragging Terence back into the atrium, careful not to jostle him. Julia was moving with them, hands pressed against his spine, trying to stabilize him. People were shouting for someone to call emergency services, for someone to prop the doors open, for someone to do something. Then they formed a line. 20 people, maybe 30, standing shoulder to shoulder at the atrium entrance. Facing me, not attacking or running, just standing there, blocking the opening with their bodies. Idris was at the center of the line. He dropped the megaphone. His arms were spread wide like he was trying to shield the people behind him. My timer read 15 minutes and 34 seconds. I'd been given 4 extra minutes for shooting a man in the spine. Through the viewport, I could see apartment windows. Dozens of them. People were filming on their phones, recording everything. I could see the little rectangular lights, dozens of glowing screens pointed at me. I tried to steady my breathing but couldn't find a rhythm. The cockpit felt too small, the walls pressing in. I could still taste vomit. The Valkyrie app was waiting for input. A prompt appeared at the bottom of my HUD. Proceed with objective, yes or no? I stared at the line of people in the atrium entrance, looked at Idris, his arms spread, looked at the crowd behind him, parents holding children, teenagers with cameras, old people who'd lived in this building longer than I'd been alive. I thought about the plaza's surface. Why had the round ricocheted? Concrete doesn't do that. Concrete absorbs kinetic impact, fractures, craters. It doesn't deflect. I checked the arcology's maintenance logs on my secondary screen, pulling up public records. There was an entry from 2 months ago. Section 17J Central Plaza, resurfaced. Material, high-density ceramic composite. Reason, improved durability and reduced maintenance costs. Notes, the surface is a ceramic-on-metal laminate with an anti-spall backing. At shallow angles, high-velocity impacts are prone to skate and ricochet rather than crater. Ceramic. The kind of surface that would deflect around instead of absorbing it. The kind of surface I should have been told about before being deployed with a kinetic weapon. But there was nothing in the contract briefing about surface composition. Nothing about the plaza being resurfaced. Nothing that would have told me a warning shot would turn into a ricochet. It didn't matter. The app didn't care about context. It cared about objectives. Proceed with objective, yes or no? The timer ticked down. 14 minutes and 58 seconds. I looked at Terence Foster's body now inside the atrium, surrounded by people trying to help him. Julia was still working on him, her face twisted with concentration. Someone had found a coat to put under his head. I looked at the line of people standing between me and the crowd. Then I looked at my phone, lying on the cockpit's console. The screen was dark, but I could still see Samir's last message. Be safe. I'd told her I'd be safe. I'd told her I'd come home. I'd told her I'd find a way to pay for Rose's treatment. This was the way. 68,000 cred units. Enough to clear the debt. Enough to give my daughter a future where she could walk without pain. All I had to do was make these people move. The app was still waiting. Proceed with objective, yes or no? My finger hovered over the yes button. I pressed it. The locust stepped forward. The locust's footpad hit the ceramic plaza and the hydraulics absorbed the impact with a soft hiss. One step, then another. The mech moved smoothly, the gyroscopic stabilizers keeping my torso level even as I crossed uneven ground. I'd piloted this unit for 6 years. Every movement was automatic. Muscle memory translated through control sticks into 9 meters of articulated metal. The crowd in the atrium didn't scatter. They pressed closer together, tightening the line. Someone started singing again. Not Solidarity Forever this time. Something else I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, clear and strong, and then others joining in. My HUD tracked each person in the formation. Numbers populated beside their outlines. Estimated age, height, weight. The targeting system was categorizing them, building a database of optimal suppression targets. Idris Edwards was tagged first, his outline flashing red. High-value target, organizer. I stopped the locust 15 meters from the atrium entrance, close enough that the crowd could see every detail of the mech, the worn paint on the torso plating, the hydraulic fluid stains on the leg joints, the serial number stenciled across the cannon housing. close enough that they could see me through the viewport if they looked hard enough. I keyed the external speakers. Last warning, clear the atrium or I will use force. Idris didn't move. Neither did anyone else. The timer read 13:12. I raised the cannon, pointing it at the ground in front of the line, at the space between us. Another warning, another chance. That's when the locust stopped responding to my inputs. The control sticks went rigid in my hands, locked in position. I tried to move them and felt resistance, like pushing against a wall. The cannon stayed pointed at the ground. My HUD flickered and a new window opened, overlaying my view. Autonomous Engagement Protocol activated. Below that, smaller text. Pilot performance suboptimal. AI assistance engaged per Valkyrie safety standards. Section 8.2. Manual override restricted. The Locust systems were taking control away from me. I'd heard about this feature. Other pilots talked about it in the forums, usually complaining. Valkyrie installed autonomous protocols in all their rental mechs as a safety measure. If the onboard computer detected hesitation, inefficiency, or contract non-compliance, it could assist with mission completion. Assist. That's what they called it. The manual override restriction meant I couldn't shut it down. The AI was built into the mech's firmware, hard-coded into systems I couldn't access, without taking the entire unit offline. And taking it offline would trigger an immediate contract breach. I watched my HUD populate with new data. The autonomous system was scanning the crowd, running facial recognition against the Arcology's resident database, building profiles. Names appeared next to each tagged person. Idris Edwards, age 41, occupation, technical writer, assessed threat level, high, primary organizer, recommended action, priority suppression. Helen Bailey, age 38, occupation, childcare provider, assessed threat level, medium, community influence node, recommended action, secondary suppression. David Soto, age 52, occupation, maintenance technician, assessed threat level, low, follower profile, recommended action, minimal force. It was categorizing them, sorting people into tiers of threat based on algorithms, social network analysis, predicted influence. The system was deciding who to hurt first. The Locust's torso began to rotate, smooth and mechanical. I wasn't moving the controls. The mech was moving itself, adjusting its stance, optimizing firing angles. The cannon traversed left, then right, sweeping across the line of people. "Stop!" I said out loud to no one. "Stop, I didn't—" A calm voice interrupted me. It came through the cockpit's internal speakers, a synthesized male voice with perfect enunciation. The autonomous AI. Engagement sequence initiated. Optimal suppression pattern calculated. Preparing to execute non-lethal dispersal. Stand by. "I don't authorize this," I said. "Override. Cancel engagement. Pilot authorization required for lethal force only. Under incapacitation exceptions, emergency protocols permit automated discharge without biometric input. Non-lethal engagement falls within automated parameters per contract terms. Please remain calm." The Locust took a step forward. I pulled back on the control sticks with all my strength and nothing happened. The mech ignored me. Another step. 12 meters from the atrium entrance now. I started cycling through the cockpit's manual controls, hitting every emergency button I could reach. Hydraulic pressure release. System diagnostics. Communications override. Nothing worked. The mech had locked me out of everything except weapons authorization, the one function that legally required human approval. The AI spoke again. Recommended action, verbal warning, then kinetic suppression of primary target. This will demonstrate resolve and encourage dispersal. Probability of compliance 72%. "These are people," I said. "Human beings, not targets." Acknowledged. Contract specifies minimal collateral to infrastructure. Human casualties within acceptable parameters. The cannon barrel lowered, the targeting reticle settling on Idris Edwards' chest. The AI was going to shoot him. Not to kill. The system was programmed for suppression, not execution, but to injure him badly enough that the crowd would break. I tried to wrench the control sticks sideways, tried to force the cannon off target. The sticks didn't move. My hands were cramping from the pressure. I could feel muscle fibers tearing in my forearms. Manual override denied, the AI said. Pilot interference detected, switching to fully autonomous mode. No, I'm stopping this. I'm the operator. Contract compliance mandatory. Please remain calm. The Locust took another step. 10 meters now. I looked at the crowd. They could see what was happening. Some of them were backing away, finally braking, pushing toward the doors deeper into the arcology. But Idris stayed. So did the core group around him. Maybe 20 people standing their ground because they believed it mattered. I thought about destroying the mech, just shutting everything down, triggering a catastrophic systems failure. There were ways to do it. Overload the reactor, blow the hydraulic seals, brick the control computer. I'd disable the Locust completely and void the contract in one action. But the breach penalties. I pulled up the contract terms on my secondary screen, hands shaking so badly I could barely navigate the interface. Found the penalty clause. Willful destruction or disablement of contracted equipment constitutes breach of contract. Contractor liable for equipment replacement cost plus 140% of contract payout value. Total estimated liability, 195,200 cred units. That was more than twice what I'd earn in a year if I took every contract Valkyrie offered. More than I could pay in a decade. If I defaulted on that debt, Cascade's collections division would seize everything. Our housing contract would be terminated immediately. No 30-day grace period for debts that large. Samir and Rose would be evicted to Tier 5, the debtor levels where water ran 30 minutes a day, and people worked 18-hour shifts just to reduce their balance by a few hundred cred units a month. And there was a criminal component. Valkyrie's rental mechs were classified as corporate property under Corporate Security Compact asset protection statutes. Willful destruction carried a mandatory labor contract, 5 years minimum, usually in off-world mining colonies where cores needed workers for extraction operations too dangerous or too remote for robots. 5 years. Rose would be 14 when I came back. If I came back. 30% of off-world labor contractors never completed their terms. Industrial accidents, exposure, suicide. I did the math 3 times in my head, hoping it would change. It didn't. If I destroyed the mech, Samir and Rose lose their home. I go to prison. Rose never gets treatment. If I completed the contract, I hurt my neighbors, I get paid, Rose gets treatment. There was no third option. The system had been designed to eliminate third options. The Locust was 8 meters from the atrium entrance. The AI had stopped moving, settling into an optimal firing stance. The cannon was pointed directly at Idris. Final warning will now be issued, the AI said. Please remain calm. The external speakers activated. My voice, distorted, amplified, echoed across the plaza. Except I wasn't speaking. The AI was using pre-recorded audio, stitching together words from my previous warnings into new sentences. This is your final warning. Clear the atrium immediately or lethal force will be authorized. My own voice threatening to kill people, words I'd never said, assembled by an algorithm. The crowd heard it. I saw confusion on faces, people looking at each other, trying to understand if I'd really just threatened to kill them. Someone shouted, "That's not him, that's not..." But most of them didn't care. They heard the words. That was enough. Some broke and ran. Maybe 30 people pushing through the doors into the building's interior corridors, scattering. That left about 70 in the atrium, plus the 20 in the line at the entrance. Idris raised his voice, shouting to be heard without the megaphone. "This is Liam Bell. He lives here, floor 94. He has a daughter. If he shoots us, he'll have to look his daughter in the eye and tell her what he did." The AI processed this statement, running it through some kind of threat analysis algorithm. Text appeared on my HUD. Social pressure tactic detected. Psychological warfare. Recommend immediate suppression to prevent morale degradation. I tried one more time to force the control sticks. My right hand slipped, knuckles hitting the console hard enough to split skin. I didn't feel it, just saw the blood, watched it run down my wrist, drip onto my leg. The timer read 7 minutes and 34 seconds. If I didn't clear the atrium in 7 minutes, the contract would authorize lethal engagement. The system would start killing people, and it would use my finger on the trigger to do it. There has to be an override, I said. My voice sounded too high. There has to be a way to stop this. Manual override requires biometric authorization code. Code restricted to Valkyrie administrative personnel. Please remain calm. I pulled out my phone with my left hand, nearly dropped it. Opened the Valkyrie app, found the emergency contact option. It took me to the same chatbot. Please help me, I typed. Autonomous system activated. I don't want to hurt these people. How do I shut it down? The bot responded, I'm sorry to hear you're having difficulties. For technical support, please call our helpline at 1-800. Current wait time, 48 to 72 hours. Thank you for choosing Valkyrie. 48 to 72 hours. I called the number anyway, hands shaking so badly I had to try 3 times to dial. Got an automated system. Thank you for calling Valkyrie Technical Support. Your call is important to us. You are caller number 2847 in the queue. Estimated wait time, 49 hours. Please stay on the line. I threw the phone. It hit the cockpit wall and clattered to the floor. The Locust was moving again, 6 meters from the atrium. The AI had calculated a new approach vector, angling to get a clear shot at Idris around the people in front of him. Engaging target, the AI said. Non-lethal kinetic suppression, stand by. Don't, I said. Please don't. Please remain calm. The cannon's targeting system locked. The reticle on my HUD turned from red to green. Ready to fire. The AI just needed my biometric authorization, a thumbprint on the trigger grip. That was the legal requirement. The human had to approve the shot. Liability protection for Valkyrie. But the system had a failsafe. If I didn't authorize within a certain time frame, it would classify my hesitation as pilot incapacitation, a medical emergency, and fire automatically under emergency protocols. A new countdown appeared on my HUD. Authorization required in 10 seconds. Failure to authorize will activate emergency engagement. 10 seconds to decide whether to shoot Idris Edwards myself or let the computer do it for me. I looked through the viewport. Idris was staring directly at the Locust, directly at me. His arms were still spread, he wasn't moving. He was daring me to do it. Behind him, the crowd was singing again. The same song from before. I still didn't know the words. My daughter's face appeared in my mind. Rose, smiling, the way she'd looked last week when the pain medication finally worked and she could walk without limping. She'd hugged me and said thank you. She'd said I was the best dad in the world. I thought about Terence Foster's body being dragged across the ceramic plaza. His spine shattered. 3 kids who'd never see their father walk again. The song was getting louder, more people joining in, voices layering over each other, words I couldn't understand but the melody clear and strong. I looked at my hand on the trigger grip, at the biometric sensor waiting for my thumb, at the blood running down my wrist from my split knuckles. Idris was still staring at me. I wondered if he could see my face through the viewport. I wondered if it mattered. Samir's message, be safe. She'd meant physically safe. She'd meant come home alive. She hadn't meant this. Rose needed the treatment. The 3rd round. 47,000 cred units. Without it, she'd keep getting worse. Bones breaking from normal stress. Pain that never ended. I pressed my thumb against the sensor. The authorization registered instantly. The trigger engaged. The cannon fired. The recoil rocked the Locust backward, hydraulics compensating automatically. The sound was a single pneumatic thump, mechanical and clean. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to see what I'd hit. Didn't want to know if the round had struck Idris directly, or ricocheted or passed through him into someone else. Didn't want to hear the screaming I knew was coming. but I heard it anyway. Voices, dozens of them, overlapping. The noise people make when something incomprehensible happens and there's no language left. The AI spoke again, still perfectly calm. Target neutralized. Crowd dispersal probability increased to 89%. Stand by for secondary engagement if required. I kept my eyes closed. The timer on my HUD was still counting down. 5 minutes and 47 seconds. 5 minutes left until the contract authorized lethal force. 5 minutes until the AI stopped trying to injure people and started trying to kill them. I could hear running footsteps now, people scattering. The crowd was breaking. Finally, they were running. Dispersal in progress, the AI said. Mission parameters approaching completion. Well done. I opened my eyes. The atrium entrance was clearing. People were streaming toward the interior doors, pushing through in a panic. The line at the entrance, the 20 people who'd stood with Idris, was gone. Some had run. Others were kneeling on the ground. Idris Edwards was lying on his back. 2 people were bent over him, hands pressing on his chest. Julia, the woman in scrubs, was one of them. Her hands were covered in blood, enough to stain her palms, run between her fingers. The round had hit him in the upper chest, just below the collarbone. Non-lethal placement. The AI had calculated it perfectly. The shot wouldn't kill him, probably. Just break bones, tear tissue, cause enough pain and shock that he couldn't stand anymore. Someone was screaming his name. A woman I didn't recognize, younger, maybe his sister or his partner. She was trying to reach him, but 2 other people were holding her back, keeping her away from the entrance where the locust stood. My HUD tagged the remaining crowd members. 43 people left in the atrium, most of them backing toward the doors. The AI was tracking their movement, calculating dispersal efficiency, preparing for additional suppression if needed. Mission timeline ahead of schedule, the AI said. Recommend maintaining position to ensure complete dispersal. Secondary targets available if compliance fails. Secondary targets. More people to shoot. Helen Bailey was still in the atrium. I could see her near the back holding a child, not her own, just a kid she'd grabbed to protect. David Soto, the maintenance tech, was helping an older man toward the doors, supporting his weight. A teenager I'd seen around the building was on his knees, hands over his head, either praying or crying. The AI tagged them all, secondary candidates for suppression. The timer read 4 minutes, then the contract would let me kill them. I looked at Idris. Julia and another person were trying to lift him, one at his shoulders and one at his legs, moving him towards the doors, trying to get him inside where it was safer, where they could treat him properly. His eyes were open. He was looking at the locust, looking at me. I wanted to say something, apologize, explain. Tell him I didn't have a choice. Tell him I was sorry. Tell him anything that would make this comprehensible. But the external speakers were controlled by the AI now. I couldn't broadcast my voice anymore. The system had locked me out of everything. All I could do was sit in the cockpit and watch people drag my neighbor away from the mech I was piloting, the mech that had shot him because I'd pressed the authorization button. The crowd was almost gone now. Maybe 20 people left, still moving toward the doors. The atrium would be clear in another minute. The mission would be complete. The AI would give me back control. I'd climb out of the locust, take the cargo drone back to the depot, go home. 68,000 cred units would appear in my account. I'd transfer it to the medical clinic. Rose would get her treatment. And I'd spend the rest of my life knowing that I'd shot Idris Edwards in the chest so my daughter could walk. The last people disappeared through the doors. The atrium was empty except for bloodstains on the ceramic floor. Terence Foster's, where he'd fallen when the ricochet hit him. Idris Edwards's, a small pool near the entrance that no one had time to clean. The mission timer hit 0. A new message appeared on my HUD. Mission complete, contract fulfilled, payment processing, manual control restored. The control sticks unlocked in my hands. I could move again. The mech was mine. I stood in the empty plaza, 9 meters tall in a machine built for killing, surrounded by bloodstains and discarded protest signs. The Valkyrie app chimed. A notification. Congratulations, you've earned 68,000 cred units. Rate your experience. I stared at the screen, at the number, at the 5-star rating prompt. Then I looked at the apartment windows. The cameras were still there, still recording. Dozens of people had watched me do this. They'd watched me shoot their neighbors. They'd watched me authorize it. They knew who I was. They knew where I lived. They knew I had a daughter. The cargo drone descended from above, lowering the maglock harness. Time to leave. Time to go home. I grabbed the harness and let it lift me. The depot technician who checked in the Locust didn't look at me. He scanned the Mechs serial number with a handheld reader, tapped through several screens on his tablet, and handed me a damage assessment form to sign. Hydraulic fluid leak on the left leg, he said. Cannon needs recalibration. You'll be charged for repairs. Standard wear and tear. I signed without reading it. He walked away. I stood in the depot bay, still wearing my pilot suit, hands hanging at my sides. Other mechs were being serviced around me. Techs with pressure washers, mechanics with welding rigs, people doing their jobs. Normal work. I watched a woman replace a damaged torso panel on a Striker-class unit, methodically removing bolts one at a time. My phone buzzed. The Valkyrie app. Payment processed, 68,000 cred units deposited to account. Below that, a line of deductions. Equipment damage, minus 8,200 cred units. Extended deployment time, minus 3,400 cred units. Collateral exceeding optimal parameters, minus 10,400 cred units. Net payment, 47,000 cred units. I stared at the number. Did the math. Medical debt was 47,000. It matched the balance exactly. A new notification appeared. Rate your experience. Your feedback helps us improve. I started laughing. Couldn't stop. The sound came out airless and broken, like something mechanical failing. A tech working nearby glanced at me, and then looked away quickly. I scrolled past the rating prompt and found the mission report. It was detailed, professional, formatted in clean bullet points. Mission summary. Contract ID 317J047. Deployment time 0600 to 0743. Objective completion 100%. Dispersal achieved 98.7%. 87 of 88 subjects removed from restricted zone. Plaza bystanders excluded from count. Property damage minimal within acceptable parameters. Contractor performance satisfactory. Below that, a casualty list. Names, ages, resident IDs, clinical and complete. Terence Foster, age 34, status, deceased. Cause, spinal trauma, hemorrhagic shock. Time of death, 7/18 in transit to medical facility. Idris Edwards, age 41, status, deceased. Cause, thoracic trauma, cardiac arrest. Time of death, 07:52 at medical facility. I read Idris's entry 3 times. He'd died at the hospital. I'd thought maybe he'd survive. The AI had calculated the shot for non-lethal placement, upper chest below the collarbone. But something had gone wrong. The round had done more damage than expected. Or he'd lost too much blood, or the hospital was too slow, or any of a dozen other small failures that added up to a man dying. 9 other names I didn't recognize, ages ranging from 19 to 64. All classified as lawful suppression casualties per corporate property defense statutes, section 44.9. Lawful, legal, justified under contract terms. At the bottom of the report, contractor rating updated, 4.8 stars, up 0.1. Bonus incentive unlocked, 15% discount on next contract acceptance within 48 hours. I closed the app, walked out of the depot, took the transit back to the arcology. The plaza was empty when I arrived. Someone had hosed down the ceramic surface. The bloodstains were gone. The protest signs had been collected and disposed of. The banner that had been strung across the entrance was missing. It was early afternoon and the plaza looked exactly the way it always looked. a neutral space between residential blocks where nothing happened. Except there was a discoloration near the east wall. Faint, barely visible, but I could see it because I knew where to look. That was where Terence Foster had fallen. The ceramic had absorbed something that water couldn't completely wash away. I stood there for a while, looking at the discoloration, trying to feel something about it. Guilt, grief, rage, anything. But there was nothing. Just exhaustion and the flat certainty that I needed to go upstairs and face my wife. The elevator ride to floor 94 took 40 seconds. I counted them. When the doors opened, I walked down the corridor toward our apartment. Past doors I'd passed 1,000 times before. Unit 0831, where an older couple lived who always said good morning. Unit 0839, where a single mother with twins asked me to help fix her sink last year. Unit 0847, our door. I stood outside for a minute, hand on the keypad. Then I unlocked it and went inside. Samir was at the kitchen table. She had her tablet in front of her, screen displaying something I couldn't see from the doorway. She looked up when I entered. Her face was calm. The kind of calm that comes after you've already processed every emotion and have nothing left except clarity. "Liam," she said. I closed the door behind me. "Hey." She turned the tablet toward me. It showed a casualty list, identical to the one in my mission report. She'd found it somehow, probably on the resident message boards where people were compiling information, naming the dead, documenting what had happened. 11 people, she said. "I know. Idris Edwards. You carried his couch when he moved in." "I know." "Did you know?" Her voice was steady. "Did you know it was here before you accepted the contract?" I could lie. Tell her I had no idea until I was already deployed, until it was too late to back out. It would be true, technically. I hadn't known the specific address until after I'd pressed the acceptance button. But she was asking a different question. She was asking if I'd done my due diligence, if I'd read the contract carefully, if I'd considered what urban pacification in Tier 3 might actually mean. "No," I said. "The app doesn't show the address until after you accept. I didn't know until I landed." She nodded slowly, looked down at the tablet. "The medical clinic sent a confirmation. Rose's next treatment is scheduled for Thursday. They approved it 2 hours ago when the payment cleared. They're optimistic. They think the third round will be the last one she needs. After that, she should be fine." "That's good. She'll be able to walk normally, run, play, be a regular kid." I didn't say anything. Samir looked at me. "You should sleep in the living room tonight, not as punishment. I just don't think I can look at you right now." "Okay. I need time to process this. What you did. What we asked you to do by needing the money. I don't know how to separate those things yet." "Okay." She stood up, picked up the tablet. "There's food in the cooler. You should eat something." "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway. You look like you're going to collapse." She walked past me toward the bedroom, then stopped, turned back. "Liam, I'm not leaving you. I want you to know that. But I need you to understand something. You did this. You made a choice. And that choice is going to live with us forever. With Rose. When she's older and she asks how we paid for her treatment, we'll have to decide whether to lie to her or tell her the truth. Either way, that's the choice you made." She went into the bedroom and closed the door. I stood in the kitchen, looked at the cooler, at the food I wasn't going to eat, looked at the couch where I'd be sleeping, looked at Rose's bedroom door, closed, my daughter somewhere behind it, doing whatever 9-year-olds do when they don't know their father has just killed 11 people so she could walk. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. Multiple messages, all from numbers I didn't recognize. "You're a murderer. We know where you live. Collaborator scum. You sold out your neighbors for corporate money. Idris had a family. He had a daughter too. She's 14. What are you going to tell your daughter?" I deleted them without reading the rest. More kept coming, dozens. Someone had posted my contact information on the message boards, probably. Another notification, this one from the Arcology's resident committee. Liam Bell, resident ID 17J940847. You have been formally expelled from the Section 17J Tenant Association effective immediately. You are banned from all communal spaces, community events, and shared resources. This decision is final and not subject to appeal. Below that, a different notification, a link to a database I'd never seen before. I clicked it. It was a spreadsheet, crowdsourced, maintained by residents across multiple arcologies. The title read, Corporate Collaborator Registry, Do Not Trust. My name was near the top, added 3 hours ago. Along with my photo, my resident ID, my work history, a description of what I'd done, and a threat assessment. Dangerous, armed, known mercenary. The database had 240 entries, names I didn't recognize, people from other cities, other arcologies, other incidents like mine. People who'd taken contracts against their own communities. People who'd chosen money over neighbors. I closed it, put the phone face down on the counter, walked to the couch, lay down, stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. 3 days passed. Rose's treatment went exactly as planned. Samir took her to the clinic on Thursday morning while I stayed in the apartment, sitting on the couch, looking at nothing. They came back 6 hours later. Rose was tired, but smiling. The doctors had said the therapy was taking hold, the new cells integrating properly, the bone density improving. "Daddy!" She ran to me when she came through the door, wrapped her arms around my waist. "It didn't hurt this time. They said I'm doing really good." I hugged her back, felt her small body pressed against mine, warm and alive and happy. "That's great, sweetheart." Dr. Ingram said maybe in a few weeks I can try running again, really running, not just walking fast. "That's wonderful." She pulled back, looked up at me. Her face was so open, so trusting. "Thank you for making the money. Mum told me you had to work really hard for it." My throat closed up. I couldn't speak, just nodded. She hugged me again and then ran to her room to show me a drawing the clinic had given her. A cartoon of a bone with a smiling face, surrounded by little cells holding hands. Samir stood by the door, watching. When Rose disappeared into her room, Samir said quietly, "She doesn't know." "Good. Are we going to tell her?" "I don't know. We should decide." "Later." She nodded, went to the kitchen to start dinner. We moved around each other carefully, maintaining distance, speaking only about logistics, the rent payment schedule, what groceries we needed, whether Rose's medication needed refilling. On the 4th day, I opened the Valkyrie app. I told myself I was just checking, seeing what was available. I wasn't going to accept anything, just looking. The interface loaded. My account balance was visible at the top, 6,000 cred units. Most of the 46,000 had gone to the medical clinic. The rest had gone to rent, food, utilities. We had enough for maybe 2 months if we were careful. A notification banner appeared. "New high-priority contracts available in your area." I tapped it. 3 listings appeared. The first 2 were routine. Perimeter patrol, equipment transport, low pay, long hours. The third was different. Asset denial, Tier 4 authorized, immediate deployment. Payout, 31,000 cred units. I opened the details. Contract type, asset denial, deployment zone, withheld until acceptance, duration, 3 to 5 hours, equipment required, bipedal combat unit, 8 to 12 meter class, objective, deny access to designated infrastructure, eliminate competing corporate presence. Rules of engagement, lethal force authorized, no civilian presence expected. That should mean safer, easier, just property destruction, the kind of work I'd been doing for 6 years. 31,000 cred units would cover 3 months of rent. More if we were careful. It would give us breathing room, time to recover, time to figure out what came next. I scrolled down to read the fine print. Same breach penalty clause. 140% of payout if I accepted and didn't complete. Same autonomous protocol warning, same terms I'd agreed to before. My thumb hovered over the accept button. I thought about Idris Edwards' body in a corporate morgue. Cascade charged a retrieval fee for casualties. 3,000 cred units to release a body to the family. I'd seen it on the message boards. Idris's daughter was 14. She was trying to crowdfund the fee because her family couldn't afford it. I thought about Terence Foster's 3 boys. They'd be growing up without a father because I'd fired a warning shot that ricocheted off ceramic I didn't know was there. I thought about the 11 names on the casualty list. People who'd just been trying to make water affordable. People who'd filed complaints through legal channels first. People who'd done everything right and it hadn't mattered. I thought about Rose yesterday, running to me, thanking me for making the money. Her smile, her trust. I thought about how the algorithm didn't care, about how there were thousands of contracts just like this one, posted every day, accepted by people like me who needed the money. About how Idris and Terence and the other 9 were just numbers in a spreadsheet labeled acceptable operational losses. The system didn't need me specifically. If I didn't take this contract, someone else would. The work would get done either way. The machine would keep running. But my daughter needed me. Specifically me. Her father. The person who was supposed to keep her safe, keep her healthy, keep her future open. I pressed accept. The screen changed. Processing contract assignment. Stand by. I waited. The loading bar filled slowly, pixel by pixel. Rose called from her room. "Daddy, can you come look at my homework?" "In a minute, sweetheart." The contract details populated. Deployment zone, Detroit Metroplex, Tier 4 industrial sector. Not residential. No civilians. Just machinery and infrastructure. Easy work. I closed the app, put my phone in my pocket, stood up from the couch. Liam, Samir's voice from the kitchen. She was standing in the doorway looking at me. "You're taking another contract?" It wasn't a question. "Yes." "When?" "Tonight." She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, "Okay. We need the money." "I know." "Rent's due in 3 weeks. We're almost out." "I know." I waited for her to tell me not to go, to say we'd find another way, to say anything that would give me permission to back out. But she didn't, because she'd already done the math too. She knew there wasn't another way. "Be safe," she finally said. "Always." She went back to the kitchen. I heard the sound of water running, dishes being washed. Normal sounds. I walked to Rose's room, opened the door. She was at her small desk, tablet in front of her, stylus in hand. "Look," she held up the tablet. "I'm supposed to draw a picture of my family. This is you, and this is Mom, and this is me." 3 stick figures holding hands, smiling faces, the kind of drawing every kid makes. "It's perfect," I said. "Do you like your hair? I made it kind of messy because yours is always messy. I love it." She beamed, turned back to the tablet to add more details. I watched her work for a minute, the way she bit her lower lip when she concentrated, the way her leg, her right leg, the one that had been failing, swung back and forth under the chair. Healthy, strong, normal. "I have to go to work soon," I said. "Okay. Will you be back for breakfast?" "Probably not. But I'll be back tomorrow. Promise." "Promise." She jumped up and hugged me. I held her, memorized the weight of her, the way she fit against my chest. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, sweetheart." She pulled back and went to her desk. Back to her drawing. Just like that, easy. Kids don't carry weight the way adults do. She had no idea what I'd done to pay for her treatment, what I was about to go do again. I left her room, closed the door softly, grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door, my pilot gloves from the table, my phone, still buzzing with messages from people telling me I was a monster. Samir appeared in the kitchen doorway again. We looked at each other. "Liam," she said. Yeah? She opened her mouth, closed it, shook her head. Nothing. Just come back. I nodded, opened the door. The hallway was empty. I walked towards the elevator, passing the same doors I'd passed 1,000 times. The building was quiet. Most people were home, having dinner, living their lives. When I reached the plaza level, I took the long way to the transit station. The route took me past the memorial someone had set up. Candles, flowers, photos printed on cheap paper pinned to a makeshift board. 11 faces. I recognized some of them. Idris Edwards smiling in his photo, arms around his daughter. Terence Foster with his 3 boys. Others I'd seen in passing but never knew. Someone had written names on the ceramic plaza floor in marker. Never forget. They died for water. I stopped, looked at the names, at the photos, at the candles burning in the afternoon light. I should say something. Acknowledge them. Pay respects. But I didn't. I just stood there for a moment, hands in my pockets, looking at evidence of what I'd done. Then I kept walking. The transit station was 200 meters away, the depot after that. Then another deployment, another contract, another set of targets the algorithm would choose for me. I thought about the autonomous AI, its calm voice, the way it had called people obstructions and targets. The way it had locked me out of my own mech and made me watch while it calculated optimal suppression patterns. I thought about how I'd pressed the authorization button anyway, how I'd given it permission, how the legal liability fell on me because I was the human operator, the one who approved the shot. I thought about how I'd do it again tonight, and tomorrow, and the day after, because this was the only work I knew how to do, and my daughter needed medical care, and the rent was due, and the system didn't care about any of it. The system just kept running, generating contracts, processing payments, deducting fees, moving money from people who needed things destroyed to people who would destroy them. And I was part of it now. One small gear in a machine that turned human beings into acceptable losses, that turned protests into suppressible events, that turned fathers into contract killers. I reached the transit station, scanned my ID, stepped onto the platform. The train arrived. I got on, found a seat, watched the floors tick by on the display as we descended toward the depot level. My phone buzzed, the Valkyrie app. Contract reminder, report to depot by 5:30 for equipment prep. Estimated earnings tonight, 31,000 cred units. Thank you for choosing Valkyrie. I looked at the message, at the number, at the cheerful corporate language treating violence like any other gig economy service. Then I put the phone away and closed my eyes. The train kept moving, taking me toward another deployment, another mission, another calculation of what my soul was worth in the algorithm. 31,000 cred units, apparently. Maybe less after deductions.